Hi there, this is Chris and Eli with Landlord Gurus, and today we are going to talk about emotional support animals, service animals, and pets, and some of our experiences. Eli, I know you had a recent experience with a tenant and their emotional support animals. So you just want to start with that? We can talk about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a tenant that just took occupancy today. So it's very, very fresh. And I advertised the property, including all of my rental criteria, which we were required to do here in Seattle as part of the ad. And I said, no pets. And I was very specific about that in the application as well. And this is not I don't think that this is a unethical move on this tenant's part, but after we had signed the lease and made the initial payments and the deposit, they said, here's my ESA letter, my emotional support animal letter from a therapist, and I have such and such a dog who will be living with us. So anyway, it's very fresh. I firmly believe this is all very legit. This tenant will benefit from having this animal living with them. And the dog I met was very nice and very well mannered and trained. So I think it's all good. But I know a lot of people are coming up with questions and issues around emotional support animals. So that's why I thought why we decided to talk about this.
Yeah, that's true. I've been hearing about this a lot as well, and I think a lot of landlords fear that animals and pets are going to destroy their property. I know that you had a no pets policy for a while, and we allow cats in some of our units, but that's it. Yeah, I mean, how do you think landlords can either kind of alleviate the potential for damage, or is that necessarily even a problem? And then also to be clear, if a tenant does have an emotional support animal and an unauthorized letter, as landlords, we have to accept them regardless, isn't that right? And I think that there are some fears among landlords that it's so easy to get an ESA letter, and that people that might not necessarily need one, end up getting one just so they can get their pets in, even if you have a no pet policy. So I guess there's that fear, and I don't know what do you think we can do about that?
First and foremost, ethically as well as legally, I think that landlords have to err on the side of giving these tenants the benefit of the doubt. The threshold for acceptable documentation is quite low, and we've written about that. We'll post some links to articles we've written on these topics, and you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. Not as much trouble as you can get into with service animals, which are those animals that live with people who have official disabilities, and that's a big legal can of worms to be very careful with. But these are real issues that people have, and as one human providing a service to another, I think we need to err on the side of accommodating. And I guess what I'd say is that, and you and I have talked about this, Chris, that what's really important is to thoroughly screen and vet the tenants themselves, and then to know what your rights are and responsibilities around, the ESAs and what you can and can't do. And there are some rules, there are some recourses if there are problems.
True. Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying about thoroughly screening the tenant. I mean, this goes, for everybody, not just ones with animals or with emotional support animals. This is for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think enough landlords actually do this, but when you screen somebody, you can find out a lot about them.
Yeah.
And you might be able to learn whether this is somebody that is fit for your unit or not, and regardless of whether they have an animal. So yeah, I mean, I think that's something that needs to be stressed here as well.
So critical in that is to have a set list of criteria which are used uniformly to accept or deny a tenant. Because if you have that outlined and it is communicated clear with any applicant, every applicant, then even if a tenant has, or a potential tenant has an emotional support animal, if they don't qualify for separate criteria, then you don't have to accept them. So really, the key is to have a comprehensive and thorough and consistent set of way of screening tenants. So Chris, I mean, maybe just a quick outline of what that looks like is what's warranted here, right? I mean, what process do you go through to screen your tenants?
Yeah, I mean, and in Seattle, we have certain rules that we need to follow, and that includes posting your criteria with your advertisement. So that gets created and that gets started right up front for everyone to see. And in a certain way, that does limit the number of potential applicants I do get, and it does kind of narrow things down right off the bat.
Yeah.
But also, just like you said, following that criteria for everybody.
What kind of criteria do you have? What are a couple of examples of criteria?
For example, there's credit score minimums we have, and there's income minimums. The multiple of what the rent is. For example, we require at least 3 times income to rent ratio. And we look at no smoking on our properties and things like that. So those are all in the criteria that we provide everybody.
Yeah, I use all those, and I also include my ability to reach past landlord references. This is probably a topic of another conversation, but I find references to be important because even just the type of response and whether you get a response, is telling. I want to have somebody else take the trouble to say, I had a good experience with this person. So
yeah, exactly.
So, and this is my 3rd experience with emotional support animals. 2 in this is the 2nd one in this same building, and then 1 in our Portland rental. And I'd say 2 of the 3 I think are absolutely legit, and the other one I'm not sure about. But to your point about the fears that landlords have, I have not had any problems with any of them. So I think that's partly good fortune. I'll pat myself on the back a little bit for having done a good enough job screening and selecting the tenants up front, so they're people that take care of their unit and their animal. So I would just say, by and large, the fears, I think, are probably overstated in the landlord community. And probably what else is in there is irritation. It rubs me the wrong way sometimes when I have a no animals policy, which is really a no pets policy at this point. Right. That's a distinction. So Chris, there's something else we ought to touch on, is like pets, emotional support animals, and service animals. Right.
Exactly. And I know that you have not generally allowed pets in your rentals. Like I said, we do allow cats in some of ours. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would reconsider for the future? I know that a lot of tenants do have pets, and I think that's becoming, a bigger trend. Are you losing out potentially good tenants by having that policy?
Well, there's potentially good tenants and larger applicant pools. I think that's really, there are going to be more applicants. You're going to have more interest. A fairly large percentage of renters do have pets. So larger applicant pool and an opportunity to make more money potentially. So we wrote an article about and we have a calculator for pet rent, and pet deposit versus pet rent and considerations there. I have not allowed pets until recently in my Portland triplex, where I have been using a property manager, and they allow pets. And they have a whole process. They use a service called petscreening.com, which is not one of our partners, but it's a handy tool. And they've got criteria about the size and type of animal as well. And then they charge pet rent. So I am getting higher rents because of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yes, I'm seriously considering changing, with other rentals that I manage.
Yeah, and I think that the tenants that do have pets, they understand that yes, there may be a pet rent and there may be a higher deposit, and a lot of them feel like that they are good pet owners, and I think probably most of them are, and so the damages are generally not as extreme as what people think they're going to
Right.
be. And if they are, you've got a deposit, specifically for that, and you've got
Exactly.
I think there's some good things you can do to protect yourself, and we do write about those in some of our articles that send post links to those as well.
Yeah, I'd say my takeaways are, give people the benefit of the doubt. The biggest takeaway is screen thoroughly and methodically, do the extra legwork, and we've written lots about that. Best screening services, how to screen, what questions to ask, all those types of things. So that's the biggest action item I think you can do. And then be careful legally and consult. We're not lawyers. Consult a lawyer if there's any doubt at all, because it's more costly to get yourself in trouble. So
anyway, there are a lot of rules around emotional support animals and service animals. So they're not pets. So, you need to know what you can and cannot do. And we talk about some of that stuff in our post, but again, when in doubt, consult a professional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So I think we'll end it here. We'll post those links to those articles where you can learn more. We'll post a link to our pet calculator as well, so you can see kind of what income you might be able to get. And subscribe and like this content if you want more of it. And we'll talk to you all next time.
Thanks much.